Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Meyers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And today we're going to check in on our NBA franchise.
Yes, Dan Mahoney, a friend of ours and friend of the city in general, is going to join us. He is Vice President, Head of Corporate Communications for the Thunder. We have him on every year that we can and find out what's going on.
Well, a lot of businesses were affected by COVID, but few affected as extremely as the NBA franchises around the country, and our Thunder was no different. Last year didn't even get to have a season with fans. This year the fans are back, and I think people are starting to look ahead and say, gosh, let's move on and get back to where this franchise deserves to be. We'll have Dan Mahoney on today on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Military service ran in my blood, starting from my father, which joined the Navy, then on the Chickasaw side, my uncle, which served in the United States Army. I'm Benjamin Espinosa, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, and I'm Chickasaw. I went to the Secretary of Defense's staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., which ultimately led to becoming a combat support technician for Naval Special Warfare, specifically SEAL Team 10. I think to be proud and to love your tribe, to love being Chickasaw, you also have to love being American. You also have to love everything that America stands for. Equality, perseverance, professionalism, and power. I want my family to know that their father is a good person, but also feels that he has an obligation to the country and to love this nation. Anything worth having is worth dying for. The military and the country owes me nothing. I owe it everything.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Well, as we talked about, Dan Mahoney, an old friend of our show, is back for his 5th appearance. Dan is Vice President of Broadcasting and Corporate Communications for the Thunder organization. He's been with the Thunder a number of years. He is a native of Philadelphia. He's been in radio and TV for 18 years. He was the communication director for a while for Governor Keating and has been shepherding our communication between this show and the Thunder in a wonderful fashion, and we appreciate it very much, and this is another opportunity for him to do that. Dan, thank you so much. Glad to have you.
Always glad to be here. I'm a little surprised it's 5 times.
Yeah.
The 5-timers club. That's great.
Well, I mentioned in the first segment just how the NBA and its franchises were impacted by COVID. Kind of take us back to that game with Utah and what's taken place since then and how that's affected your job and your staff.
Well, I think everybody who was there that night will never forget it. We documented it in a film that we produced for Dead Center last year, and we were ready to play the game. COVID was the coronavirus at that time. No one was wearing masks. Everybody was washing their hands for 30 minutes. I mean, it's weird to think about kind of how different things were then, just as COVID was really kind of starting, but it hadn't really hit home for people, most people, unless you were directly affected from a health standpoint.
Yeah, it was still hard to believe we were going to be wearing masks.
Right,
at that point.
Exactly. And so we were ready to have a basketball game, an important game. It had playoff implications. It was the difference between the 4 seed and the 5 seed with us in Utah. And, the game, the night started with normal pregame stuff, and then we heard internally from the governor's office and from our medical staff that one of the players on the other team, one of the Jazz players, had tested positive. That player was not in the arena, but then it became a question of what do we do now? And the decision was made, working with the NBA, to postpone the game. Our goal that night was to make sure our fans were safe and didn't panic, and we let them know the game has been postponed. We asked that you leave in an orderly fashion. No one really knew. Everyone sort of suspected it was related to COVID, but really didn't know. At that time, you didn't know. Was it airborne? Could it spread from one part of the building to the other? What was? I mean, there was still a lot we didn't know, and but people left. People were like Oklahomans do. They were kind to each other. They left very orderly. They didn't run. They understood what was going on. Disappointed they didn't get to see the Thunder play that night, but as things unfolded and we determined the whole situation with the Jazz player, it was clear that that was the right thing to do, was to cancel the game. And from there, like every other business, like every other person, like the whole world really, you just went day to day trying to adapt to what was going on. Everybody's main goal was to stay safe and healthy. And as a business, we just looked at, the league made the decision to put the season on hold while we wait and figured out what was happening. Of course, that became the bubble in Orlando, where eventually in the summer, teams got back together in Orlando and played the remainder of the season, played the playoffs in that very safe environment. And like I said, like all businesses, like all of society, trying to deal with that every day, trying to stay safe, trying to do the right thing, figuring out how to be effective in your business, how to work from home, which I think we all got pretty good at. But I think at the end of the day, while it could become convenient, you miss that interaction, you miss that person-to-person connection. And really for the Thunder, it was unique because we are so used to being external. We're so used to reaching out in the community, doing things in the community, visiting schools, doing all these things, having games, doing everything we can do for our fans to maximize their experience at the games. So everything was an outreach. All of a sudden, we couldn't do that. Yeah. We had to do it all, either through remote ways like Zoom, but we figured it out. We adapted, and that's, I think, what we do well is adapt in adversity.
Let me interject here, because you kind of took us to the end of the fall of 2020. Well, you're in charge of broadcast and communications, but the Thunder, their general main interest is to bring people into the arena, and then they supplement that audience with broadcasting.
Right.
All of a sudden, there is no in-arena audience for an entire season.
Right.
So how did that change your job when suddenly the broadcast is the only audience there is?
Not a whole lot different, because we always felt that way, because, 15, 18,000 people in the arena. Meanwhile, outside of the arena, throughout Oklahoma, throughout the region, we have thousands and thousands of fans. So we always tried to present the broadcast in a way that made the viewer feel like they were at the game. Now, it's not like being at the game, and you can't pretend it is. But we did realize that our fans, particularly our very loyal season ticket members, that's how they were connected. That's how they watched this team. We felt we did a good job presenting, but I don't think we did a whole lot different, because that's the way we've always approached it.
And does your department also handle all of the video and extracurricular media that comes on the website? You might expand. It's a lot more than just a game broadcast.
Yeah, so our broadcasting department that I oversee, we have really two arms of it. In many ways, we have three arms of it. We have our TV and radio broadcasts, our Michael Cage and Chris Fisher, our play-by-play and our analysts, who actually were guests on your show just before COVID happened. And that show kept airing throughout the month of March, which was interesting. And then we have Matt Pinto, our radio broadcaster. They are all full-time Thunder employees. We have a producer, a director who work for the Thunder. But we also have a broadcast production department. We have about 7 videographers, editors, producers who do nothing but create content for our website, for our social media platforms, for our mobile app, for our corporate partnerships department, sales videos, all those things. And that's changed over the years. It used to be just for the website, but then obviously social media came in over the past 10 years, 12 years, and that became a key part of what they do, is create the content. Our main video platform right now is Instagram for our videos. So
Really?
So all of them we work.
That's where the most interaction is between the social media
As far as
platforms?
video creation. Yeah. No, we do it for everything. Facebook is still big. Twitter's big. I'm not the TikToker, but there are people on our staff who do TikTok. But from when you see a really well produced video, now for in the arena we have a separate entertainment department. John Leach is the director of events and entertainment, and they guide the video for in arena. But we do all of the social media and website video.
Everything
content.
external,
Yes.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dan, remind me how long you've been with the Thunder.
Since the beginning, in 2008, and prior to that, for 2 years, worked with Clay Bennett and the ownership group as a consultant in Seattle.
Okay.
Spent quite a bit of time in Seattle over those 2 years. For about a year, went up there about 3 or 4 days a week.
Let me ask you, you have this broad experience with the Thunder and the league. What major changes, if any, have you noted in the game itself over these years?
You know, I'm not the basketball mind. Luckily, we have Sam Presti for that. You know, our goal is to just do everything we can to make it an enjoyable experience for our fans. You know, the game itself, people can talk about the different positions, whether they're as vital as they were. You know, we have sort of positionless basketball in many ways. You know, the three-point shooting, all those things that basketball people talk about. But for us, you know, we've really done everything we can to keep that experience fresh when you go to the games, or when you watch the games on TV, or when you connect through our social media or other digital platforms. But you know, as we went through season ticket renewal this year, we really focused on that experience that you can only get. You can't Netflix an NBA game.
Yeah.
You can't. You know, you got to be there. You can't feel that T-shirt flying over your head when you're sitting on your couch. You can't, you know, hear rumble jump up from behind you and scare you, you know, or make you smile. You can't. There's only one place for that, and that's the arena, as Paycom Center, to watch the game. So, you know, at the end of the day, what hasn't changed in my time, certainly that I've been there, and I think since day one, 75 years ago, is basketball's fun. NBA basketball, you're seeing the best athletes in the world compete, and that's the fun. And then all the while, you have a really cool experience doing it.
Dan Mahoney is with the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll be right back with more.
We want to reach out to every veteran we can in Oklahoma. There's somewhere around 340,000 veterans here in Oklahoma, and half of those are still unaware of the benefits or don't know how to go about getting them.
We help guide the veterans through the VA system. It's a giant maze, and we kind of help guide them through that maze. So our job is to try to help the veterans get everything that they're legally entitled to. There's just a special place in my heart for our Vietnam veterans and our World War II veterans, as well as any veteran, and that's why I do the job.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank #2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
Welcome back to the Set of the Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers and our guest, Dan Mahoney with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I know the Thunder's involved in a program up in Tulsa called the Thunder Fellows. What's that about?
Yeah, we're very, very proud of this. You know, following the summer of 2020, the murder of George Floyd, everyone was looking for what can we do. A dialogue, I wouldn't say it started, but a dialogue certainly intensified on social justice, on race relations, everything else, and it's great to have that dialogue. But you have to move past just dialogue, and you have to make things happen, and you have to create opportunities. You have to make change. So Sam Presti, our executive vice president and general manager, and a lifelong friend of his since they were little kids in Boston, Mike Johnson, he is a senior executive at CAA Sports. And Sam's white, Mike's black. They grew up together in Boston. They started talking because the question is, what can we do? What can the Thunder do? You can have as many hashtag thoughts and prayers as you want, but the key thing is do something that creates opportunity, that creates change. And so they came up with this concept for Thunder Fellows, which is an after-school program for black youth in Tulsa. We have a cohort this year of 26 kids, and it's all designed to focus on creating awareness and experience within the areas of data and analytics, which we do really well on the basketball side. We have a very robust data and analytics department. But it's data and analytics in the areas of sports, tech, and entertainment. And of course, entertainment is where CAA comes in. And so these kids have been together since October. They will, in May, they will finish their year. Then there'll be a second cohort following that. And it's just tremendous to see these kids come in, and you not only see them learn and create opportunities for themselves and us helping them along the way, but you're seeing them grow. You're seeing them connect. And they're all from various high schools in the Tulsa area. Mm-hmm. And it's been tremendous. We are actually documenting it for a documentary for Dead Center Film Festival in June. And it's something we're very much looking forward to continuing to grow and expand. We actually hired a staff. Cedric Iqbo came from New York from the NBA to help us run it. Cedric has done a fantastic job. And again, Sam's vision, Mike's vision for it is creating that opportunity, and it may lead to careers in sports. We may see some of these kids as general managers in 10 or 20 or 30 years. But either way, they're growing from it. They're seeing that there's opportunity there and that they can move forward and hopefully go on to great things either in that area or other areas. So look for more on that, but we're excited about it.
And this is the first year of it?
Yeah, they started in the fall as part of the first cohort, 26 kids. Because of COVID, we had to break them into two cohorts of 13 to go every night, Monday through Friday. They go at 5:30. We have one young man who he gets on the bus in the morning when it's still dark, takes the city bus to his school, goes to school all day, and then takes the bus to Thunder Fellows. So it's a 14-hour day for him, but these kids are really getting a lot out of it, and we're getting a lot out of it by watching them develop, helping them develop and grow.
Well, what do these kids, have you had much attrition in them dropping out, or are they pretty loyal and hanging in there?
We've got, you take 26 teenagers, you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
In terms of, all the things they do in their lives, whether they're issues at home, there's been great parental support for this, and there was a lot of parental support in getting the kids to apply in the first place. Some kids didn't necessarily have the confidence to think that they could do it, which that's one of the things you want to see is them develop that confidence. They have 25, each of them has 25 new friends, which is terrific, and people that they can learn from and grow with. But no, we still have the 26, and they're very much focused. They're going to wrap up in May, and then we'll move on to the next.
Yeah, and of course, with the age of your players, they're not much different in age from these high school kids, who are.
They're a lot closer to our players than they are to us.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah. Well,
no, it's true, and our players have been involved. Our players have visited. The kids came down to Oklahoma City during the season, went to a game, got to meet the players, got to interact, went to a practice. Thunder Fellows has social platforms that we put together. There's an Instagram, there's a Twitter, there's a Facebook for Thunder Fellows. We'd encourage people to go on and look at some of the content we've gathered. It's a great moment at a practice in March where I think 20 of the kids came to Oklahoma City. They connected with the team. They were at the practice, and the players took a great interest because, it was just a few years, in some cases 3 years previous. Our players were that age. And in many cases in the same situation. And we also took them to the Oklahoma City National Memorial so they could get a really good feel, like we do with our players, a really good feel for what Oklahoma and Oklahoma City and the state of Oklahoma is all about to learn what happened and the aftermath of that, and not just what happened, but as you know, how the community responded. And it really gives you a good connection of what Oklahoma City is all about by visiting that site and that museum.
Is there any, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is there any thought of expanding it to perhaps Oklahoma City as well?
We would love to look at what the future is for it. Is there expansion in Oklahoma City or other communities throughout the state? Absolutely. Yeah. And now, part of the reason we're in Tulsa is because of the 1921 race massacre.
Right.
The George Floyd situation and the early development of Thunder Fellows began during the year that was the 99th anniversary of that. And so it made perfect sense because of the Greenwood District, Black Wall Street, everything that occurred there. Actually, one of the kids in our class is his great-grandmother is one of the living survivors right now of the race massacre. And so that definitely was a reason to start it in Tulsa, and that was the reason we started in Tulsa. But yes, we definitely will look at where we can expand this in other communities.
Yeah, I think you guys must be breaking records on having the youngest NBA roster in history. If it's not the youngest, it's got to be one of. How is that just kind of affecting the franchise and everybody around it? Because everybody's obviously saying, well, yeah, I mean, the future's got to be bright because these kids are like younger than college teams.
Well, it's funny. One example of that is, it used to be like when we were putting content together, we would talk to the players about, do your parents have home videos of when you were a kid? Do they have? Now it's like, yeah, I got it on my phone. So yeah, I mean, we're in a period right now, and Sam, he's the leader of this of developing this team, and that involves young players who we're watching before our eyes improve every night. They're improving every possession, every game, and that's what we're looking for. And there's no timetable on it. You can't say it's next year. It's just you move forward. You develop every night, win or lose, and you have a great young coach in Mark Dagnall who is leading it. We have a great program in the G League, the Oklahoma City Blue, that helps develop those young players. A lot of these guys that you saw toward the end of the season, due to our injury situation, had played for the Blue. Most of our roster that was active late in the season had played for the Blue at some point earlier in the season. So, but it's all part of the development, and that you're developing young players, and that's part of the goal here is to get better.
Well, I'll be paraphrasing, but from what I remember at the All-Star break, LeBron James was asked about Josh Giddey, and his response was, "Well, the real All-Star is Sam Presti and his ability to find talent." And so I think what LeBron was trying to say, it seemed to me, was he was trying to expand the conversation. It's not just Josh Giddey. It's Trey Mann. It's Andrew Wiggins. And it's year after year after year of exceeding expectations from the draft, and that this is not a coincidence. That's got to be acknowledged, I think, inside the building, that Sam Presti has proven to be a GM who can find talent above virtually everyone else who's tried to play that game.
Well, nothing against LeBron, but we didn't need him to tell us that. Sam is a tremendous leader, has been since he took over the Sonics in 2007. He's made decisions that other GMs might not make. He was our leader in 2008, and we didn't make the playoffs in 2008, and we watched a young team grow and develop. We had a rookie named Russell Westbrook. We had a second-year player named Kevin Durant. People forget, when we drafted Serge Ibaka, he stayed in Spain for a couple of years. We had his draft rights, but he stayed in Spain to develop. Sam is it's constantly developing. Even when you're at the point where you're in the Western Conference Finals, you're still developing because you're still bringing players in. Oklahoma City is a market, based on being the third smallest market. Right now, it's hard to get free agents to come to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a fact. And
well,
so it
won't be for long.
You have to develop through the draft, through that process, and Sam has put us in a terrific position. But again, there's no timetable on it. There's some luck involved too.
We've got to close out the show, but good luck in the draft. And if you seek free agents, let's hope they'll come to Oklahoma City and be a part of something special.
Absolutely.
Dan Mahoney, thanks.
Thanks, you guys.
Dan.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Kent and I'll have a final word after this.
It used to be okay in teachers' lounges. It used to be okay in maternity wards. It was okay in sporting arenas, college campuses, and office spaces. But now that we understand the deadly dangers of secondhand smoke, that's not okay anymore. So why is it okay that thousands of employees are exposed to it every day at work? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's protect hardworking Oklahomans. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. I was just getting all my notes together. It'll be interesting to see what the Thunder does. You know, they have a lot of draft capital this year. And will they try and make a run at being more competitive next year, or will they put off that maturation process one more year? But we'll see. And part of that has to do with things that are out of their control, like the lottery.
Yeah, I have great confidence in the leadership in the Thunder, and they'll do the right thing.
Yeah, well, I hope they do it sooner rather than later, but I trust their organization.
Yeah.
They push all the right buttons at the right time. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.